November 5th, and that means it's time for the really big class violin session today. There are fireworks going on outside my window. I like to think that they're in our honor, but hopefully that won't be too disruptive from my point of view. But I'm so delighted that we have this class to look forward to today. We've got 4 performers, and our guest teaching artist is Bettina Mussumeli. Bettina and I met in San Francisco probably 20 years ago, something like that, maybe not quite. I think you had just returned to the States, or had just moved to San Francisco, possibly. You were playing in a string quartet, as I recall, and teaching at the San Francisco Conservatory. And we crossed paths at a chamber music seminar, I believe. And I remember listening to you play and listening to you teach, and I'm just so delighted that you've agreed to be with us today. So welcome, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say to these wonderful performers.
Well, thank you, Cecily. It's really lovely to be here, and it's really wonderful to reconnect after all these years. I mean, I think that was back in 2001 that we first met, and I followed the Cypress Quartet and got to listen to many of your wonderful concerts, especially Beethoven. So it's really nice to reconnect after all these years. And all of this distance, for those who don't know, I'm in Miami, and everybody's kind of all over the place, so this will be fun.
Excellent. I just want to mention a few of the highlights from your biography, because I have to admit, until I read it, I didn't know that you'd done all these things. So I knew that you'd gone to the Juilliard School. I knew you were a graduate of Juilliard. It says that you also were part of a leader of a chamber orchestra where you toured all over the world, playing both modern music, and it looks like you have a big background in historical performance too, which is going to be amazing for our Bach performer in a bit. Do you want to tell us a tiny bit about that? Because it's something I didn't know about you.
Well, it was an interesting turn of events because, again, being at the Juilliard School at that time and studying with Dorothy DeLay and being a New Yorker, one was really thinking about, okay, I'm going to be a soloist, but that's it. I'll never leave New York. The world began and ended in New York. And this conductor showed up at Juilliard one day looking for people, and he had an orchestra called I Solisti Veneti in Italy, and offered me the job. Well, he offered first a tour in France, and I was like, this is fabulous, I have to go. And the orchestra was fabulous. We were probably the best known orchestra, small chamber orchestra in Italy at the time, besides I Musici. And we were kind of the diametric opposite of that. We played a lot of Vivaldi and a lot of Tartini and a lot of the Italian Baroque. And we also did a lot of music that was written for us. So it was really interesting. It was a fabulous first job right out of school. And I thought I would do it for a year, and that turned into 19 years. And I still have a house in Italy that I go back to. The moment I can get back, I will be going back. And it's just been fabulous. It's been a wonderful experience.
Amazing. And now you mentioned you're in Miami. You are a professor at the Frost School of Music there. And I think, without saying too much more, we should dig into the music. So our first performer today is Vivian. She is with us from the Wells Cathedral School in the UK, but she's originally from Hong Kong. And we'll share her video of the first 6 minutes or so of the absolutely beautiful Barber Concerto. So enjoy. Bettina, if you could just unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Vivian. How are you? What a beautiful performance. What a treat, really. And to hear it with piano, yay. That's so nice that you got to play with your pianist. Really, really beautiful, beautiful playing. I would love to know your thoughts on this piece.
The beginning sounds very generous and like very warm, and then there's also like moments of like sadness as well inside. It's kind of musical.
Cool. And excitement?
Yeah, in like fast sessions.
Okay, good. The fast sections and interestingly too, I mean, the development of this piece is really quite interesting, the way he constructs it. I mean, do you have any feelings about how he actually makes that happen?
Um, like, like the piano also has like a quite important role in terms of the
I'm
piece.
sorry, what did you say? You have to speak up just a little bit.
Like the piano part also has like interesting melodies inside.
there's a very interesting thing that goes on in this development, and it's first introduced a little before the development in the timpani, and then it's carried on in the cellos, in that pizzicato, boom, 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 which is something that goes on throughout the entire development, which is a really interesting thing. You know, Brahms, the third sonata, he does the same thing in the first movement in the development. He actually has a pedal A throughout the entire development, which creates this incredible harmonic tension. And what Barber is doing here is actually creating that same tension, but with rhythm underneath you. And so that really helps, if you can track that, to really bring out that tension. And that's a great contrast in this piece to that sweetness that you talked about in the beginning, right? Because it's also a difficult piece. Have you played the whole thing?
Just the first movement.
Just the first movement. As you work, I mean, the last movement is a huge departure. It's something completely different, right? Yeah. But making a difference between the first movement and the second movement is often challenging for the performer. So, and in the same way, making differences in this first movement is a little bit challenging, so we don't kind of get the same sound all the time, which kind of brings me to my next question, which is, in your toolbox, what do you have that can change the sound and the sound quality?
Use of vibrato and bow distribution. How it sounds. Yeah.
So, good. I'm really glad you said vibrato first, because I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So I'm a little puzzled in how you decide which notes you vibrate and which notes you don't. And the second time I was watching you play, I was thinking about this a lot. I was thinking, well, is there some method that you use that
Not really, but like maybe important notes that I feel like should come out more. So I would use more vibrato on them.
Okay, and all right. So vibrato, it evolved from being an ornamentation in the Baroque style to something that we use now today as something that projects sound in a big hall. It helps us project the sound in a big hall. And so the way you answer me and saying that important notes, so this would be a way of looking at it almost like an ornament, because in the Baroque period they would be ornamenting interesting notes, harmonically interesting notes. So that's a good place to start from. I'm just wondering, even in the opening, I feel like you tend to stop your vibrato between notes, especially, and I'm wondering if that hinders carrying the phrase. So can you start just the beginning for me one more time and think about what you're vibrating in relation to what the music is doing? Great. Perfect. So I can see that you're already thinking about it. So again, even in the beginning, why don't you vibrate the C?
Oh, you mean the...
Well, it's so he gives us the... I mean, if I take away all of the fancy notes, right? So the... And so that goes kind of to important notes and not important notes, because he's kind of writing a scale. And he's bringing us all the way up to the A, and then finally the B, which resolves, but he gives that to us in piano. But so do you have vibrato exercises that you practice?
Yes.
Oh, can you show me one? Okay, that was good. Tell me what. Okay, are there others?
Just that one.
Just that one. Cool. All right. So when I studied with Dorothy DeLay, she was an absolute master at curiosity. Like, she wanted to know why everything worked and how everything worked, and she was convinced that anyone could play like Heifetz if you only found the key. So she would take everything apart, and she would have a million exercises for everything every aspect of playing, every technical aspect of playing. And I think I'd like to work on 3 exercises that she used to talk about. So the first one is, how does vibrato work?
Move your like you try to move your arm.
Well, you could move your wrist too. Actually, you do a lot of wrist vibrato, which is interesting because what you just showed me is practicing exclusively arm vibrato. So it's kind of interesting that you practice arm, but then you do wrist when you play. But so fundamentally it goes from the note and back.
Yeah.
It very rarely goes from the note and up, right? And it's kind of a giving motion. It's also a giving motion because it's projecting. We want something to project outwards, and any motion that goes inwards kind of makes us tight and won't project. And this is very much a giving motion. So you're giving to the audience, right? So it's from the note and back. Now, if you were to take that motion, and I don't want you to change fundamentally how you vibrate, if you were to take that motion and just roll your finger back to the harmonic, let's take an E on the A string, and we went. And again, nothing changes. I mean, that's basically how I would vibrate. So I'm not doing anything weird. I'm just rolling right off to the harmonic. Try that for me. Yeah, good. Just vibrate. Don't think. Just vibrate. No. Just vibrate. Just pick a note and vibrate. Excellent. Good. Does that feel normal to you?
Yeah.
Good. Now, just slow it down. And don't be too big about it, and just feel the weight roll off. Good. Can it be a little smaller? Yeah, so it's based on what you normally do. You don't have to exaggerate anything. It's just slowed down. And the back end of it comes completely off. Can you go to third finger and try that? Good. How does that feel? Weird?
Relaxed.
It feels relaxed. Good. Try first finger. Good. All the way to the harmonic. There's a nice harmonic there. I want to hear that harmonic. Good, good. Now just vibrate. Now forget about it. Good. Try the opening. How did that feel?
Comfortable.
Did it feel a little different?
I think my finger was pulling more backwards.
What it should do is release your hand so that you can really feel how large or how small you want the vibrato to be. You can go either way, you know. So that's the first exercise. The second exercise is kind of interesting because she used to talk about something called ping. And ping is what you hear in like Heifetz vibrato. Has anyone talked about this to you? Has anyone mentioned this?
No.
So ping is that silvery kind of sound that you get with Heifetz and Perlman. And she would take recordings and slow them down so that she could hear the oscillations. And she discovered that it comes from uneven vibrato. So if you want something warm, the vibrato is quite even and dark. And if you want something that's a little brighter and a little more exciting, it comes from being uneven. So she had us practice our vibrato in triplets. So we had 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And she would make us get faster and faster. Do you want to try that? Good, 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 good. So don't stop the beats. Don't stop. 1, 2, 3. Make it like it's a nice slur. So the and the up part of it is almost like you took a rubber band and the rubber band snapped. So you're just releasing and going back up. Yeah, cool. Take your left hand for me. Just take your left hand. Good. And just go like this. Yeah, you feel that? That's how the upward motion of the vibrato should feel. Like you've created tension and then it just releases. A little faster? A little faster? Yeah. Now, as you get faster, it gets a little smaller. Right? So let it get smaller because you want it to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, experiment with that. Experiment with that sound to see where you could use it, you know? Because, again, variation in vibrato, like in bow speed, which you do really well in your bow speed is really important in how we make sound. And then the very last one I want to talk about is continuous vibrato. So how do you do continuous vibrato?
Don't stop vibrating.
Well, that's easy to say, don't stop vibrating, but is there a way? I mean, there's two directions, right? There's a down and an up. So does the next finger go on the up swing or the down swing?
It goes down and comes back.
Right, and then if you put your next finger down, all right, so if I'm playing a B, I'm going to do it really slow. So the next finger comes down on the upswing. Try that really slowly and see if it makes a difference. No, you can't stop. So when you almost. So rhythmically it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Yeah, 3 to 4 was really good. There is no stop in the motion. The movement to put the vibrato, the movement to go up on the vibrato is the movement to put your finger down. Does that make any sense? It's hard over the internet.
Yeah.
So this way the motion never stops. So if you're vibrating the D, so even I'm making it sound really, really, really slow because I kind of want you to a little bit experiment with how the weight shifts in your hand so that nothing stops on the so that you can vibrate every note. Now, that was a lot of like very abstract exercises. So let's now just sink into the beginning and see if we can apply some of that. That was like really different. What did you think? It's hard to do many things at once. I know it's hard to make you think about many things, but what did you think?
I think there are more different types of sound.
And you know, you can experiment, especially in the diminuendo on the A. Again, I think you need a little vibrato on those 16th notes afterwards, but if you experiment with keeping your vibrato really bright while you diminuendo in the bow, it's kind of a neat little thing because we expect something. You know, instead of closing, you want to keep it open, just softer, right? And I think that it's a great way of practice. So you can just you can practice a little bit your scales. You know, just in first position, just rolling the vibrato from one finger to the next, so that you keep motion in your hand and you're distributing weight, right? And then a lot of times on really high notes, you can take that note apart and vibrate all of those different ways. You can vibrate. And I would also encourage you every once in a while to take your head off the violin. Do you ever practice like that?
No.
Like in take something high. Play a high note for me. One of those high notes that you have. And then we're going to have to stop because I think I'm getting over. But good. So what would happen if you took your head off the violin and you vibrated?
Well,
Okay, so I'm just gonna throw this out at you. So I want you to think about holding up the violin with your thumb, right? And then just plopping your fingers down. Yeah. So that the thumb is kind of supporting the instrument and the fingers are really free. And so when you vibrate, I'm not saying you have to take your head off the violin, but it's a nice way to make your body understand that you're not hanging off the instrument, but that you're supporting with your thumb. Yes. Does that feel really weird?
it's all right.
It's a really good way to practice your vibrato because it kind of loosens up everything. Sometimes we feel like we're holding up the instrument and we're hanging our hand on the violin. And nice Mr. Thumb kind of is doing nothing. Whereas if he can support, if he can actually participate, then he can loosen up everything. Yes, yes. And that way you can decide whether you want fast vibrato, slow vibrato. Many, 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 many different things will open up to you. And so I wouldn't, because it already is a completely different texture. And again, what the end result that you want is to get your own personal voice. And so you have to kind of practice in a million different crazy ways before you can actually come back and really understand what it is you want and how physically to get that. And I would encourage you because it's... That was weird. Somebody got mad I'm talking too much. Anyway. Oh, you disappeared.
That was very odd.
That
was not me, but thank you for the incredible performance, Vivian, and also for the great, the terrific tutorial in how to practice vibrato. Oh my goodness, that was, I think every single one of us, at least I was sitting here kind of doing them myself with my video off. But thank you very much. And
bravo, Vivian, thank you.
And I think Vivian will be back in a moment. I think that was a little glitch that will be remedied in a second. And we are going to move on to our next performer, who is playing the absolutely incredibly gorgeous slow movement of the Bruch Concerto. This is Sam Kane. He's actually a student of mine, just for the past month or so, and studies at the Royal Northern, and he is here. So this is the first 2/3 or so of the second movement of the Bruch. And Bettina, if you could just unmute yourself again, I can't do that.
Bravo! Hi!
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, you too.
The beautiful, beautiful playing.
Oh, thanks.
This is one of my favorite pieces. It's so and my favorite part of my favorite piece is like over there in like 97. Ya da 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 dum, ya da 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 ya da dum. And you play it just beautifully. Yeah, it's really a lovely piece. It really is. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it really is just like such a beautiful movement. I think just like getting the like trying to get like a really rich sound and get the feeling across. Um, like after the first movement, it's so like it's almost like aggressive, and then this movement is just like pouring your heart out.
I really, really like the motion that you just did, the way you kind of settled this way. I really, really like that. And I'm wondering if we could talk just a little bit about Because there are two things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk a little about the dotted rhythm, bom, ba bom, and how that evolves during the piece and how we treat that, as far as even what words we could use for that and how those words change throughout the piece. But since you talked about that yummy sound that you want to get, I'm wondering what do you think about that? How do you approach that?
I think about like the harmony and which notes to kind of bring out, like if there's a leading note, and just thinking of like the longer phrases. I do that, but I do find that a lot of the time, like I do a lot of it with my left hand, and then with my bowing, I think I could be a bit better.
So, actually, since you're there, all right. So, what is the difference between how your left hand feels when you're playing something really, really technical and maybe fast, and how it feels when you're playing something like this?
I think it feels, well, my left hand feels a lot more relaxed doing something slower.
Okay, so since you have your violin like that, I'm going to ask you to put your hand up one more time like this, like a guitar, okay? And I want you to just look down at your hand, and I want you to look at the space between the strings. And I want you to feel like you're squeezing a sponge and see how much weight do you need to press the string down. Okay, that's cool. So, and that's a great feeling, because the way the strings spring back can be an incredible help in fast passages too. They can be like little mini trampolines under there, you know, and help you release. But that feeling that the fingerboard is not wood, like you're not playing bone on top of wood, but you're playing pad into the string. So it's a nice visual to actually look down at it and cuddle it. I like to call it cuddle. And when you put it back up, then to not really change that fundamental position. Yeah. Just do me a favor. Just fool around with this. Just slightly move it. Slightly move it, because that tells you about what's going on in your shoulder, and it's really hard to play with that sound if your shoulder is kind of like.
Oh right, yeah.
So again, it's that concept of this as opposed to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you want to be presenting the pads of your fingers to the strings, and not so much the shape of a box. So let's see if that actually loosens things up. Just that feeling of yumminess, of sponginess.
Yeah.
Here, start the beginning.
Okay.
Cool. That's interesting. That's better already. I wonder if that can follow through in how you kind of hang it. Hold your bow in this hand for me. Hold your bow in your left hand, just real quick. Good. And I want you to just feel, where'd my camera go? Good. Yes. I want you to feel like, I don't know, do you swim at all?
No.
All right. You know those little kids who go to the pool and they have water wings?
Yeah.
So again, in the ocean, kind of just, so it's not your hand that's holding anything. It's your arm that is just like sinking into the string. In the same way that this is kind of feeling like you're Yeah, so that when you're like, everything is, and violin is kind of meeting the bow. Try that for me. It's a lot to think about, but. That was beautiful. How did you feel about that?
I felt like that completely took away like any sort of tension. I kind of sometimes have a habit of like with my first finger to press, but I felt when I imagined that actually I didn't really.
It's, you know, it's an interesting thing, that concept of the right hand. You can actually just kind of do this to your own hand so that you're feeling like the thumb is doing nothing. The thumb is not pressing up. It's not holding the bow, but you're really through the instrument, connecting to the middle of the string, you know, and it's all here. It comes all from here. This stuff, it only does the little things like colle or uppo staccato or those little finessey things, whereas the rest of it comes really from this big fat arm here. And that really was lovely, and it releases the left hand in a way that made your vibrato much more vocal. So we have in the second measure already this dotted rhythm, right? So we have da 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 da. And then it's going to morph, right? It's going to morph into da 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 da. It's going to morph into that, and then it's going to get really angry, right? It's going to go da da ba da. So how do we deal with those three affects?
Yeah, I kind of think like definitely towards the beginning I want to be a bit more like smooth, but then as it goes on, maybe like I've been kind of doing like articulating like a tiny bit more as like as the mood changes. But
if you had to give them words, what words would it be?
maybe like at the beginning like sonorous, maybe. Generous or sonorous.
But if you actually had to put words to this, let's say I was an amazing musician and you were my librettist and we were making an opera. What words would you put to the first two bars?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
Sorry.
I like it, maybe like calling out to like a loved one, maybe.
So great. So if I'm going to be completely unself-conscious, all right. So it's like oh how I love you. So again, when you say to me smooth, I'm not sure that if I was saying, oh, how I love you, how smooth I would want that. Oh, how love you. Kind of doesn't make sense. So I kind of want you to think through your bow as far as what you would speak to someone.
Yeah.
And that you know, translates into bow speed and how close you get to the bridge and all of those things that we have in our toolbox. But try it one more time and really think about syllables. That's getting much better. That's getting much better. You know, there's a definite shape to the phrase, right? We have the I love you, and then kind of like, oh, he kind of maybe doesn't love me that much. I'm just going to use love, but you know, that's kind of the sad one, kind of doesn't love me, but you know, the way you, and actually you have to lead the orchestra a little bit there too, or follow the conductor depending on who you're playing with. But that's much more evocative. So then when we have the play that for me, and let's fool around with making it two separate, making it two live. Let's see how many different ways we can do it. Okay, so you have two of them, right? You have da 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 ya da dum, and then you have da ba ba. I can't go up that high. Dum da da dum. What's the difference?
Well, the first one's kind of is like descending, and the second one is like going higher. So
okay. So, yeah, think about what that means to bow speed a little bit. If you're pulling me in a direction that's going down and then you're bringing me in a direction that's going up.
I think I could be slower whenever I go down, maybe slower bow speed and then open up at the top of the phrase.
Try that for me. And remember, don't double dot them. Give them their due.
Yeah.
Good. You know, you do something when it comes forte, in that you take a retake when you do it in forte. Is there any way that we could try a retake in this? In the... Are you down by? I can't remember. So it's a tiny... Instead of... Just a little bit of a bow breath, I like to call it. What did you think?
I really like that, yeah.
It's beautiful. And it gives a breathlessness to it, right? So I'm saying, you know, cotton candy or something really yummy, you know? And again, you're speaking through your bow, so there's that breath. And I know we're getting like, we're coming to the close, but you do that so well, I would encourage you so much to think about the speaking connection. In my favorite part, the one thing that I missed was the concept of that rest. I mean, what do you think he's meaning with that rest? Da 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 ya da da da. Yeah. I mean, he could have not made a rest, right? He could have made it all legato.
Well, it is definitely like speaking. It's kind of like the first time in the piece that kind of triplet idea sort of comes. It needs to be like such a change of color.
And also, it's really the first time in the piece where you are an obbligato. You're an accompaniment, basically. But as far as speaking goes, what would happen? What would happen if you were a singer in that rest?
A breath.
Yes. And it's so breathless. It's like da da ya da dum. They're kind of legato, and they're spinning the phrase, and you're like ya da 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 dum, ya da 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 ya da dum. And there are a million different articulations you can use on those first notes. They can be less articulate, they can be really articulate, they can be separate, they can be, or they can be, but you have to breathe. You have to breathe before it. That, can you try that once for me?
Yeah.
Like from a little before it?
Maybe.
Excellent. Can you try that little bow breathy thing we did before? The it's hard.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, just from the first one.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I'll try one more time.
Good. I would encourage you, when you're in your practice room alone, to actually yell something in those rests.
Yeah.
So I would, in whatever character they are, so maybe the first one, and ya da 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 da, and da 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 ya da da, hey ya da 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 da, you know, so that you get a momentum going, and the pausa, the rest has real meaning. And it has to do with how you use your bow and how you use your breath. So those are the kind of the things. Don't forget about this, because this really resonated with your hand. Okay, so this is a good thing to do when you're sitting in orchestra and like the conductor's like talking away, and just look down at your hand and feel that, and it makes your hand feel really, really good. Thank you so much for playing.
Oh, thank you.
Bravo.
Great.
Thank you, Sam. That was really great. And I hope you go and actually listen back on YouTube to the first time you played the opening phrase after you felt that spongy feeling, because you sounded like a singer. I mean, it was really gorgeous. So thank you for taking that on, and Bettina for the great words. That was beautiful.
Bravo.
Awesome. So we go from there. We're going to jump across the ocean now and invite Oliver to play some Sibelius for us. Oliver's a student at the Yale University, and yeah, we've got the first section of Sibelius. So I hope Oliver is there. I see him in the list. Yeah, he's here. Okay, great. So here is his video, and we will go.
Bravo. Bravo, Oliver.
Thank you.
There we go. Bravo. Really, really wonderful, wonderful job. And yeah, technically really, really, really solid. So you study with the Professor Sharp.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. I've never met her. I know her sister from San Francisco, from my San Francisco days, but that's really, really cool. I just wanted to talk a little bit. Do you know that there is a first version of this concerto?
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I saw once an article in the Strad that there was the first version and Vengerov played it, and that's all I know.
Well, there was a first version, and it was a disastrous first performance, and he immediately withdrew the concerto, and did major renovations. So and there is. If I can get my technology to work enough to actually put it in the chat, I will. If not, I'll send it to Cicely. There's a really cool recording of it by violinist Ilya Gringoltz, who I had never heard of, but with the Lahti Symphony Orchestra in Finland, and it's a hoot to hear what the first. There's 2 cadenzas in the first movement.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a handful. And there's some really interesting things that he took, but rightfully so, took out, because they were. I encourage you to find it on YouTube. I will send it off to Cicely, but because it's really fun to listen to. It's like, violin geek for a while. Cool. So how long have you been playing this? How long have you been working on this?
It's been a while now. It's been since like summer, I would say, beginning of the summer. Oh no, actually before that. Yeah. So it's been a while, which maybe you came across in that recording. I don't know.
Oh no, it's not. There was no judgment there at all. I'm just looking for information. And have you done the whole piece, or just how far?
I have not the third movement yet, or a little bit of the third movement, but not completely.
Cool. So what are your feelings about it? I really love your sound. I think you have a really good feeling for it. I think you bring out really well, like the gypsy part of it, and like that dance element that actually is throughout the whole piece. I think you do that quite well, and many things are really working well. So I'm wondering what your feeling about the piece is.
In general, just like what I envisioned the first movement to be like, sort of.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? It's very. I like to think of it as like very cold in the beginning, distant.
Which is interesting, because there's supposedly a first sketch of this piece that's dated from a point at which he was vacationing in Italy. And he wrote, before the first entrance, the Bells of Rapallo, which is hardly like cold. It's really interesting, but I digress, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I feel like it's very dark and sad in certain ways. I don't know the history of Sibelius very much, so I don't know really why that would be, but like, I guess, yeah, it just sounds distant. I just envision like his cold, home or something. I don't know. And it's just very virtuosic and dramatic, but in a very dark way. Yeah.
So, a little bit about Sibelius. Sibelius played the violin. He really wanted to be a violinist. And he went and auditioned for a place in the Vienna Philharmonic and didn't get in. And it was destructive for him. It was very destructive personally for him. And then he went on to piano and he went on to conducting. At the time that he was writing this concerto, he was dealing with serious alcohol problems. And he was dealing with serious financial issues. So again, not to nerd out too much, but I feel like taking the personal issues that either surround a composition politically, personally. I think these are all elements that make it real to us, and in your case can validate what you're feeling. It's interesting that they found a comment in one of his diaries when he was about 50, and he stated that he had a dream that he was a 12-year-old virtuoso, violin virtuoso, successfully playing something on the stage. So, I mean, at 50, he was still looking back and thinking, damn, I could have been a violinist. I really wanted it, but I wasn't good enough. So there is that kind of angst in this, the only piece he wrote for violin. And, I mean, when you look at the part, I mean, you know, for anybody out there that doesn't have the part, I don't know if you can tell, but I mean, what does that say about him? And when you look at the incredible amount of information he gives you, what does that say to you about him as a person and as a composer?
Well, he just really, him being so explicit means that he wanted to convey a very specific message. It's like music being like a method of conveying like a story or something like that. So yeah, clearly he was like trying to express, oh, I really wanted to be this virtuosic player, but I couldn't. Here's my depression or something.
Well, and again, you know, there's so much. I mean, he's definitely hands-on. Right? He's like overcompensating and real control issues here. He really wants to control every phrase, almost every high note. I mean, and he does often make diminuendos on every arrival.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to be able to digest that in a way that brings us that feeling of not having very much satisfaction at this point, you know. I think that's our job as instrumentalists, as we're reaching out to touch the audience, you know. So that's a lot right there. How do you practice that in?
I mean, I think making recordings and listening to it back again and seeing if I am, and looking at the music at the same time, this is something I should do more. Because then I feel like it's easy then to hear like exactly what interpretation you're trying to go for if you listen back to it.
And it's difficult because as many recordings as you listen to, you will hear, you know, 20 different interpretations, and so again, what is right and what is not. I mean, really, it all comes down to personal taste. But there's also a lot of technical prowess involved in being able to actually make these things work. So again, I would encourage you to look back at the score and just really think about what he's getting at and how he's getting it. I'm wondering if we could maybe start at the beginning, and it's hard because that texture that he has, right? That texture lends itself to almost what will become an impressionistic sort of color place, and yet he gives you this underlying constriction of this rhythm that you really have to be careful that you're absolutely in time, because the orchestra's not going to like move. You know, it's dee da dee da dee da. That is that. You know. So here, why don't you start it for me one more time, and we can maybe just throw some ideas around. Cool. let me ask you, is the first note dissonant or consonant?
Oh, it's dissonant, right? Wait. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, well, your violins are playing F and A, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the G is dissonant and you resolve to the D.
Right.
So what does that mean to your vibrato? What does that mean to your bow speed? What does that mean? How do you bring out dissonance?
Oh, sorry. I meant to say there's like anxiety in the vibrato, faster vibrato, maybe.
Maybe, and
Narrower is, I guess what I meant. Yeah.
and resolution.
Yeah, and then a resolution on the D. Yeah.
So the resolution, what does that mean to vibrato?
Warmer, I guess.
Okay, warmer. I mean, so as a general rule, we don't over vibrate resolution. So there's conflict in resolution, and conflict we want to bring out, right? Resolution we want to release a little bit. So again, so the G is like, has that little bit of fire that's in the ice, and then the D just kind of resolves. I don't know if it's like, it's like, yes, I can, no, I can't. But it's something different. Cool. Can you try that one more time? What does he rate as your dynamic?
Mezzo forte.
And what else does he rate?
Dolce et espressivo.
So, which means?
Like beautiful and very expressive.
Dolce is sweet.
Or sweet, yeah, right.
Which is kind of like not what we really want to do, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. Can you just sit on the G? I'm just going to give you a little exercise. Just sit on the G for a little while and make it sound as dissonant as you possibly can, and then go to the D. Yeah, I'm thinking you can make it more dissonant. Get closer to the bridge. Yeah, so again, I thank you for experimenting. It's not easy to experiment in front of people, but it's like I don't want anything pretty. And then I just want to kind of feel that war. Cool. The reason I asked you not to play the A was to see what the A's function is.
Oh, sorry.
Which is fine, because you kind of did it, you got it, you're getting there. So there's this kind of gritty sort of thing that resolves, and then there's A.
Mm-hmm. Would you like me to play with the actually?
Sure. Sure.
Sorry about that. Okay.
No. Cool. And then, so is the F dissonant or consonant?
It should be consonant.
So that's a consequence of the D. And then that gets kind of weird again. So good. Try it one more time for me. Beautiful, beautiful, really beautiful. I'm just going to be really picky, sorry. So you have 2/16 notes, and they're the same notes. Do they have the same function?
I guess not, but I don't have a good answer.
Well, I mean, that's going up a perfect fourth, and then one is taking you somewhere, and the perfect fourth is kind of like the church interval. It's like sort of reaching for God, and then you're coming back and you're resolving to something, and then you're going to go on to something really weird. Again, I'm just kind of pushing you to like hear through the normalcy to like what the underlying story is.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Would you like me to play from the beginning?
Sure. And actually, I want to say one other thing, and it's you know it's hard through the Zoom, but again, I said this to the student before this, that the concept of putting your arm on the string as opposed to putting your hand on the string. So you don't want your fingers to be having very much to do with like anything having to do with bow control. You want to feel like you're just putting your upper arm into the string. Cool. Excellent. Excellent. That was great. And did that feel a little bit different just as far as starting goes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a little easier.
Everything happens here. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh.
That's way better. Way better. I can see you starting to like experiment. And that's like what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to like, you know, experiment with that timbre and that sound, because I mean, you've got it's all there. I mean, you just have to kind of let it open up and flower a little bit more and be brave. I would suggest that also when you hit the forte, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars of forte. No, 2 minutes, 5 bars of forte. And I would suggest to you that the function of dee 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 da 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 ya da da da, those triplets maybe make them a little wider, but they carry the phrase. Can you do it one more time, and then effectively what you do after that on the G string should be a little less as far as volume goes, because it's poco forte. Maybe just from right on the forte?
Yeah.
Cool, cool. And we're going to run out of time, but that was great. That was great. These rests here, all of these things that he brings you in on an offbeat, right? Are they, again, consonants and dissonants, right? Are they rhythmically consonant or rhythmically dissonant?
What is that? Rhythmically consonant. So wait, what does that mean?
So rhythmically consonant would be on a downbeat or a second
okay,
beat,
sorry,
right?
okay.
And an offbeat is rhythmic dissonance, right? And dissonance of any kind is not good. Things are not good, right? So again, you have to kind of breathe in the rest and feel a little bit nudgy. Nudgy, do you know what nudgy means?
No.
Oh, it's Yiddish. I thought maybe since you're at Yale, maybe you'd know nudgy. But nudgy is somebody's annoying you, right? It's kind of like, right? So you end the... It's that kind of feeling, you know? So you have to kind of breathe into it and just open it up. So, yeah. And it's the stuff you do in the rest that makes everything else work, you know? Cool. There's Cicely over there. She's like, yeah. But I would encourage you now to go through it in a way that's almost like, oh, I found this manuscript and I've never heard it before. And look at what this guy writes in here. Look at all this weirdo stuff. How can I make that happen? What is it? It's not normal. So make it your own in what you want to bring out to us, you know? And don't forget to just let your arm do the work. Cool, bravo. Thank you so much for playing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant playing, Oliver. Thank you so much for joining us here. I just have to follow up because I'd never heard that about the bells. And this isn't a piece that I studied in my I know I went through
Right?
how many years of school and I never learned the Sibelius concerto until I had to teach it. So but I hadn't heard that about the bells, and I love that because of the jangliness of the two pitches being played against each other at the same time, and then that strange mezzo forte marking, which is so the opposite of what you hear a lot of the time. But I'll never look at that the same way. So thank you for that.
It's really interesting because Rapallo is certainly not it's certainly not a place that's cold. So I mean it's just interesting little nuggets, but again, it is weird that he writes mezzo forte espressivo. So
and I also love that Oliver felt like he'd been playing it for so long since he just played it since the summer. So try say that to us in 20 years.
really.
It's fantastic perspective on things. All right, we have one more player, and we have the first section of the Bach Chaconne from Ty Zapp coming to us from California, and we'll share his video and get into some Bach. Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you.
There you are. Bravo, bravo. Beautiful, beautiful playing.
Thank
Do you
you.
do you play the whole piece?
Yeah,
do you
I
play
can
the whole
play
the whole
entire piece.
chaconne?
In this recording, I don't because of the time limit, but I
I
can
know.
play the entire chaconne.
So you've worked through it.
Yes.
Okay, good. And have you worked through the whole sonata?
Yes.
Excellent. Good. It's really really beautiful playing. It's really, I think it's quite well informed. I really like your style. How do you feel? How do you feel about it?
I feel pretty good about the style.
Oh, good. So it's a big piece, right? So how do you approach it? I kind of want to hear your process.
So when I look at the chaconne, I started this probably 2 or 3 months ago, and it had always been something that I had wanted to play. It was something that I was working up to, and I had already had a lot of preconceptions about it. I had heard it for a long time from a lot of different violinists, and when I approached it, it was sort of just. I used to play it actually quite different. I used to play it quite romantic, and then I started my new teacher, and now I try to make it more informed. So I try to approach it from, well, now I'm changing my perspective to approach it from a more informed perspective, and just keeping with the chaconne theme and the feel.
So that's interesting. What does that mean to you? More informed. I mean, what have you discovered?
More similar to how they would play it during Baroque times, as opposed to like 20th century interpretations.
So
Or 21st century.
Again, what 21st century? Yeah. Have you played it on Baroque setup?
I have not.
Oh, that would be a fun experiment, actually.
Yes.
If you can get your hands on a Baroque fiddle and a Baroque bow, or at least a Baroque bow, that would be really, really interesting. I don't have my Baroque bow here with me, but it's there are certain things that are way easier to navigate on a Baroque setup, way easier. So that, having said that, but so, because there's a reason. I think I'm going to try not to advocate too much for either side, but there is a reason, there's a fundamental reasoning why during the 50s, like the interpretation, the really romantic interpretation became the norm. And I think that there is, part of that reason does come from the inherent message of the music. So I'm wondering what, first of all, you think about the message in the music.
I think that it's a really gorgeous message. I think I remember reading that it was about like possibly referencing the death of his wife, and I remember also hearing something where there was like a church hymn that if you played them together, it matched up. So I think that it's sort of like a sort of mourning, but also I'm not quite sure.
Well, I mean, it is D minor, and the affect of D minor, composers through the years have written about the affects of the different keys, and D minor is one of those warlike keys, and it's definitely an unquiet place that he's coming from. So what is a chaconne?
It's a dance, and there are 4-bar variations.
Okay, cool. So excellent. So what is there anything you can tell us about the rhythmic weirdness of the chaconne?
It starts on the second beat, and the emphasis are on the second beat.
Right, just like the sarabanda. So the sarabanda, the chaconne, the folia, there's nothing rhythmically, they're all the same thing, right? So you really want that second beat to be heavier, and he understands that his performers are informed, so he knows that 1 is going to be heavy also, but 2 then is going to be really heavy. So I think if you experimented a little more with that at the beginning, but again, it's a dance, and it was kind of a risque, kind of weird dance in Spain. It was actually outlawed for a while, and yes, it's interesting to kind of bring those things together. And when people danced these things, the first beats were often not down but up for dancers. I had the good fortune to work with a company called Dances Through Time in San Francisco, and it's really fun because there is never, downbeats are never down. I always wonder why we call them downbeats. They're never like sitting, they're always up. So I think that is an element that you could really you could bring to the opening of this, that would really kind of set, because like with any variation, the theme has to be what we hang on to. How you set out that theme is what we're going to be listening for the whole rest of the piece. So would you be willing to start that beginning a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So that's 16 bars, the first phrase.
Pardon? I didn't hear.
Is that 16 bars, the first phrase?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No.
It's not?
Oh, well, I have it sort of broken in my head as... Yes, it is the first phrase.
All right, so I'm going to just throw something out there because, so it's a 4-bar bass line. And so if you take it from there, it's 64 variations, right? So if you play 64 variations, the piece is going to take 2 hours because it's going to be so broken up in little things that there's just going to be no flow. And it's untenable from a performance aspect, right? So in my head, and what I did was I went through it and I mapped out the sections, and I came up with, I think, 16 sections plus the statement of the theme, and then the recapitulation, and tried to make contours within those 16 sections. So again, I would ask you, is that where you just ended? Is that the first phrase?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens in that first phrase? What is the shape?
So I think that the first 4.5 bars, or well, I guess it's, since the first bar is not technically complete, it's the first 4 bars are like an arc in terms of dynamics. So it starts, or not necessarily an arc.
So it kind of comes down a little bit.
Yes.
After ya da 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 dum, does it restart again in the same place emotionally?
No.
Does it start more or less emotionally?
I think that it starts more, but because I have a forte written there, but
You have a forte written from who?
it's just parentheses. I think I don't remember if I wrote it in my old teacher or.
It's not Bach.
Yeah.
So again, not to say, not to there is no right or wrong. It's just starting from what Bach wrote, you got nothing. So again, he brings us, I don't want to play, but he brings us back down, right? There's longing, there's dum, bum, 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 and then there's dum, dee, da, dee, da, 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 dum. And then we go to a really big place, right? We go to a really big place. So in order to make room, because I mean, all right, I'm going to sound awful, but the top, that's, you would agree that's the top, right? So getting from getting there, you need to leave yourself a little bit of room. So again, that's why I'm asking for shape. I want to know what you're thinking. So can you just do a really bad thing for me? Can you once try two downs? Just can you try that down, down once? Good. And I would ask you to think about how you break those two chords. So the first beat is heavy, but the second beat is heavier. So what's the difference going to be between how you break those two chords?
The weight, or how I break it. So the second beat is fuller and less, or I guess it would be more dramatically broken then.
Well, because it's also dissonant, right? It gives you the dissonant on the heavy beat. So try breaking it in a different way.
Okay.
Excellent. That was great. Now, you can do whatever bowing you want. But as long as it has that concept of one, what I like about that is the way you deliver 1-2 to me. That already says something different. So as long as you give that to me, you can do sideways. I don't care. So go back to your original bowing and feel what you need to change. Okay, good. I mean, I'm not sure that bowing serves the phrase as well as maybe another bowing, but I'm sure you can also make it work. Okay, so the musical delivery is what is important. What we come to next, let's call it the first variation. Okay, what style is this first variation? Or actually, even it's a dance, but what emotional impact? Is this the same as the beginning?
No, it's lighter.
Okay. Is this French overture style?
I'm not quite sure what that means.
Okay, so look it up. Go to the Google and look up French overture style. Okay, so in the Baroque, there are many different styles. Bach uses this in a lot of his suites. And it's a kind of a almost like a march, and in general it's double dotted, so it gives a sense of urgency. And with a Baroque bow, you would separate them. So the affect would be the something like that. So can you just try that for me? You don't even have to play the chords. Just feeling that him ta-tum, ta-da-dum. No. I want you to actually retake. And I want you to let the sound spin underneath your retake. Good. Feel what you have to do with your bow speed to keep it reverberating. Excellent. Now, I'm not going to make you play that way. You can play whatever bowing you want, but the spokenness of that pom, pa pom, pa pa pom, you can do in any bowing. But there's an urgency and kind of a searching. We've stated something, and now we're kind of like, but wait, is that really true? What can I think about that? Is everything just bad? I mean, he's having a conversation. And when we talk about Bach, we usually talk about him conversing with God about very deep things. So again, what's he saying now? So you can go back to your other bowing, but that feeling of expectancy and nervousness has to be there. That was better. All right, so fool around with it. What happens in this section? Let's call that the second. Is this the second variation? Or is this a variation on the same variation?
At measure 17 or at measure
17?
It's like a variation on the variation we just had. But
okay.
I guess it's still its own variation.
And
I break that into a different section in my head.
And would you like to break that into a different section musically too?
Yes.
Okay, then you have to make a phrase before it for me so I know that. And then again, the affect of what comes next. I mean, this descending chromaticism that he has underneath it. Like the one before it, we're kind of like searching, we kind of want answers. And this is maybe a very kind of sad, sweet answer to that. So it has a different character. Maybe do like just 2 bars before this and go on.
Okay.
Good. Can you wait a little more? Can you wait even more? Yeah, just let it fade away. Yeah, that was much better. I take a little bit, I would urge you not to if you break the bow, don't actually reiterate the bass, because it sounds like he wrote 2 quarter notes for the E and he only wrote 1. So that sounds like 2 quarter notes. So again, be a little careful when you do that, so that you don't write a different bass line.
Okay.
Good. What did you think?
I thought it sounded good.
This very it's so sweet and dolce in there. And again, let your bow travel. Don't feel like you're the it needs a little of that push, bum, pom, pom. So you use your bow. Keep it going. Cool. Cool. Excellent, excellent. So again, we're going to run out of time. So these are all different characters that you can really, I just wanted to talk about one of the sections, because there is an element of virtuosity that comes into this writing. There is an element of, look how good I am, look how fast I can play, look how many notes I can play, you know, that, and that kind of develops when you start this, you know, this dance. He takes that second beat motion and he almost makes it a minuet. It's like all of a sudden he absolutely puts the accent on 1 now, and we're in a different place. And that goes all the way to all the way that it's so show-offy that I think that that's a real climax, and you could just pull out all of the stops and really go for it a little bit more, you know, in the development of that. Because then, you know, then he calms it down and he goes to this other really interesting place, you know. But I would encourage you to sit down with the score and or the manuscript. Have you looked at the manuscript?
I have.
Cool. And just map out all of the sections, what you think the emotional content of the sections are, because these guys were crazy emotional, which is interesting, going back to this concept of romanticism. In the German concept of telling a story, the romance, right? So not the I love you, pushies, that kind of like stuff, sickly sweet stuff, but the actual romanza, to tell a story. And so it's such a long piece, and there are so many stories. I mean, God, the major is just, I mean, that's probably some of the most beautiful music ever written, coming after all of that angst and minor, you know. So, I mean, what's happening there? How there are very personal things that we can take and really label. And that way, each of your sections is, again, laid out. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. And each of your sections has a different character, so that we really are watching the whole scope of life go on before us. And I think you have like really no technical problems, so go do that.
I will.
Bravo. Thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for playing.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments.
Fantastic playing, and I love that, like watching the world kind of go before us. I think it's why we're all so drawn to this piece again and again and again and again.
And why it's like been transcribed for like saxophone quintet, and I mean it's like it's crazy what it's been transcribed for and how it still works. There's like a universal humanism to it that just pours out through the pages, and it's really very, very unique.
Absolutely. So if anyone wants to pop their video on and ask questions, we have a couple of minutes. I had a note from Oliver apologizing that he had to go to class.
Oh no.
So, but he says thank you very much, and he really enjoyed it. Also, Wendy Sharp sent a note saying thank you, and
Wendy.
she had to go teach, and as did Simon, who was here from the Wells Cathedral School. He had to run off. So we've had some comments that way. I don't know if there are any comments on YouTube. Mark will maybe pass them on if there are. But does anyone have any questions? I have a few of my class here. Ayrton's here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sending us Thai.
It was fantastic. Thank you, Bettina. So nice to meet you online.
Oh, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Everything you said has been said, so that's really wonderful to hear. You know, that second person. It's so important.
By the way, I just put in the chat the Sibelius link. If anyone is interested in hearing that first version of Sibelius, it's really kind of fun.
And I will share that to the Facebook group too for anyone who is on YouTube, so they can see that as well. Any questions? Sam, do you have any questions? Emily? Alex? Everyone's feeling shy, I think. Sam's never shy. Come on, do you have anything? We can't hear you.
You have to unmute.
Okay. In terms of like adding vibrato to a piece, whether like fast or slow, or even like rest or arm, like how do you like decide what is best for like which type?
So in general, I like to think of vibrato as an ornament, which it was. It comes from an ornament. So when I think of intensity of vibrato, I like to think about whether the note is dissonant or consonant, whether it's an interesting note or it's something that's just a resolution. So if you're resolving something and if you're at peace with something, then perhaps the vibrato is not that intense. Whereas in something that is dissonance, that's where the intensity comes from. So I like to look at harmony mostly and work from there, as opposed to the concept of the blanket vibrato, you know, which, I mean, in modern times we kind of use that because we use it to project the sound in a big hall. But there's a couple of nice exercises I gave Vivian at the very beginning, delay exercises for releasing vibrato that you could maybe look at. One of them is rolling back to the harmonic, and that one I found very useful. And one last thing is, if you actually make yourself vibrate on the instrument instead of on the fingerboard, it often really loosens up things. And then when you put it back, it's really like fluid and loose. So those are all little exercises you can try and see what works.
I think Sam has an absolutely wonderful vibrato that's really huge, and I think he wishes sometimes that he could get it a little bit more delicate. The opposite problem that many of us have. We are often wishing for the wider, bigger vibratos, and I think Sam sometimes wishes he could do the opposite. Do you have any? I loved the triplet version of that delay exercise. I haven't done it quite that way. I think that's one thing that I know I'm going to explore in my practice. Anything about making the sort of gaining control on the smaller side without being tight. That's the trade-off.
I think actually, interestingly, what we worked on together with that feeling of even just holding your hand this way. So if you come to the intonation of the note through how you place your finger, and then the placing of the finger is almost the initial wiggle. and you don't go any further than that. So I don't want to say you're playing non-vibrato, but you're playing like almost non-vibrato. So that there's just the tiniest little wiggle, and you really think about how your pad feels, and you feel that air between the string and the fingerboard. I think that helps us conceptualize a sound from inside out, as opposed to, oh, I have to move my hand, I have to put my finger down, I have to vibrate, which kind of gets into very physical technicalities of things. And then when you try and make it small, it's like, then you can't move. So again, you kind of like widen everything and just sort of give it the tiniest little motion. You can experiment with how beautiful a sound you can make with absolutely no vibrato, just by how much pressure and weight you're using in the fingerboard. And that can actually open up lots and lots of color in the left hand without it being specifically vibrato or non-vibrato.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great advice. Anything else before we call it a night? Call it an afternoon or a morning, wherever we are?
Yes.
Across the world?
This is really brava to you, Cecily, because this is just really taking the bull by the horns and bringing us together in our moment of isolation.
Well, and we've just started our second period of lockdown here in the UK, so we've kind of come back to where we started in April. Sad to say, but this has been a lifeline for me, and I know for other of our audience members as well. It's been something to look forward to and enjoy and focus on, and with the brilliant performers, these young violinists, and now we're having some chamber music across. It's just great. So thank you for being here. Just a little bit of business before we cut off the live stream and call it a day. 2 weeks from today, November 19th, we'll have a chamber music session. Mary Peckham, former cellist of the Cavani Quartet and now head of chamber music at the New England Conservatory, will be our guest, and I have groups lined up, get this, from Brazil. And hopefully our quartet in Manchester will find it possible to play together. We're looking into lockdown restrictions for them, but I think if they go to school, it'll be fine. And we have a young piano trio from the Interlochen Arts Academy in Michigan, where I went to school, so I'm very excited about that. That's in 2 weeks, November 19th. And Ertan, who's here with us today, will be teaching the next violin class the first week of December. So, and then I think we may call it a year. I've been looking into doing another chamber music session in December, but I think everyone will have packed up and gone home. So then we're looking at 2021. So thank you for supporting the really big class. I will be launching a new fundraiser in the next few weeks because I'm going to run out of money in a couple of weeks. And if we're going to do this into 2021, I'll need to come up with some plans. So look for that. Send people to YouTube. The archive's still there. I haven't managed to get it on Vimeo and make money from it yet. So it's still free. You can still watch it. And see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone. And bravo.